Wrexham are one of the oldest football teams in existence, and they play at one of the oldest international grounds in the world, and they are now one of the most famous clubs as well. In the most unlikely alliance in sporting history, actors Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought Wrexham AFC, plotting to change their fortunes of both the club and the community of Wrexham. After failing to win promotion from the National League in their first attempt, they secured the National League title last season, pipping Notts County to the trophy. Now back into the Football League, I will take over Wrexham for the next 10 seasons to see if I can achieve their Premier League dream. And if you like the rebuild content on the channel, guys, or if you're a Wrexham fan, don't forget to hit the like button on today's video, and if you are new around here, hit that subscribe whilst you are here, and let me know down in that comment section who you would like to see me rebuild next. We will be using a real-world database for this rebuild, so this is the Wrexham team going into the first season, and we have these 5 players joining us throughout pre-season. As we are playing in the lower leagues of England, there is only one tactic that I can use. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be playing 4-4-2. So we will be using GYR's Groot tactic, which looks like this in game, and like this with the best 11 going into the start of the season. But we will be without star striker Paul Mullin to start the year, as he is still recovering from his broken ribs that he suffered in pre-season in real life, thanks to Manchester United. Competitions wise, we have a lot on our plate this season, as we will be competing in 4 different competitions this season. Whilst these trophies would be nice to house, the key competition for this season has to be League 2, and the board are expecting us to finish inside the playoffs. However, if you look at the season preview, we are favourites to win the league, so we best deliver. The goal for Season 1 was promotion from Sky Bet League 2, and we got off to a bit of a mixed start, but settled into a rhythm once Paul Mullin returned from injury. However, the absolute bagsman of the season was Ollie Palmer, who slotted 30 goals in all competitions, on our way to us comfortably winning the Sky Bet League 2 title. We managed to beat Stockport to the title by 14 points, picking up an impressive 31 wins out of our 46 games, and we will be joined in League 1 next season by Stockport, Sutton and MK Dons. In the EFL Trophy, we were drawn in the Northern Section Group D alongside Everton's under-21s, Doncaster and Accrington Stanley. We managed to win all 3 games to top our group to progress to the knockout rounds. We dispatched Carlisle in the second round before beating Manchester United's under-21s on penalties in the third round to set up a quarter-final against Bolton. We were at home for the fixture and managed to dominate the League 1 side, putting 5 goals past them with different goal scorers to see us move into the semi-finals. This set up a semi-final away at Port Vale, where the boys battled valiantly but sadly lost 1-0. However, we will have another crack at this competition next season. In the other domestic cup competitions, we were knocked out in the second round of the FA Cup by Gillingham and in the third round of the Carabao Cup by Arsenal. We've actually been given some transfer budget for next season, but I'll be moving it all into the wage budget and looking to pick up those free transfers. This summer window, we managed to increase that wage budget to bring in 8 new faces without spending a penny on transfer fees. Key additions will be fullbacks Sam Byram and Dan Potts, who will drastically improve us in those positions. We also added Ian Provida to play on the right-hand side and striker Tyrese John Jules to give us 3 key options up front. Something we will be leaning on this season is the experience of these players, considering they've all been released from Premier League clubs. Lots of these summer additions come straight into our best 11 as we look to be making the step up to England's 3rd tier. Competitions wise, we have the same 4 as last season, but there are some huge clubs in Sky Bet League 1 this year, with the likes of Bolton, Charlton, Plymouth, Portsmouth and Sheffield Wednesday all in the league. The board are hoping for a mid-table finish, and looking at the pre-season odds, we're expected to finish in 8th place with title odds of 17-2. Let's see if we can make this step up. Our start to the season was patchy at best and even went on a 3-game losing streak going into October. However, with a large turnover of players each summer, sometimes you just have to let everybody settle in. We had a fantastic winter period, only losing 1 game from November through to the middle of February, which really propelled us up the league table. A large contributor to our success was our dynamic duo up front. Whilst neither Mullin or John Jules won the Golden Boot, they were both very much up there in terms of the goal scoring charts. Towards the end of the season, we put together a run of 7 successive wins, which then saw us amass 90 points, which saw us finish second in the Sky Bet League One table and secure automatic promotion. We didn't win the league, Plymouth did that for the second time in 3 seasons, and we will be joining the Championship next season by Barnsley, who won the playoffs. So we had achieved back-to-back promotions in the league, but this year we also had a little bit of success in the cup competitions. We made it to the quarter-finals of the Carabao Cup, dispatching Plymouth, Salford, Rotherham and Southampton before being taught a lesson by Newcastle at St James's Park. In the FA Cup, we progressed through the first round, knocking off Grimsby, Port Vale and Coventry, but fell to Premier League Wolves in the 4th round. Not bad performances overall from a League One side. Our last cup was the Papa John's Pizza Trophy. We progressed through the group stages but weren't very convincing in 2 of those games, which were settled via penalty shootout. We then went into the second round where we would take on Grimsby, and after a barnstorming 4-4 draw where Grimsby scored their last goal in the 96th minute, we sadly lost the penalty shootout, with Jordan Davies missing that all-important spot kick. All in all, this was a remarkable season, achieving promotion to the Championship and making our name for ourselves in the domestic cup competitions. But the step up from League One to the Championship, in my mind, is huge, so we're going to have to recruit very well over the summer. We were given some transfer budget again, but I will be moving it all into our wage budget to increase things by £100,000 a week, which will make a massive difference. This summer, we had one huge outgoing, selling Ian Providor to Millwall for £8.25 million. This is a remarkable amount of money for a player that we picked up on a free transfer just 12 months prior. This money allowed me to get really aggressive in the transfer market, bringing in 7 players on free transfers. We added key players all over the pitch, with Kofi Balmer and Sepp van der Berg coming in the centre-back positions. In midfield, we added Casey Palmer, Elliot Embleton and Lucien Aguame and Raul Moro, and the latter 2 joining from big Serie A clubs. And finally, we dipped into the loan market to pick up new-gen Rick Kopp from Ajax on a free season-long loan. But we weren't done there, as I was still trying to add 4 additional players, including Sky Vink on loan from Ajax, who would be a season-changing addition should we sign him. Competitions-wise, we say goodbye to the Pizza Trophy. Now we are a Championship club, and in the league this season, the goal from the board is just to survive. And looking at the pre-season odds, it's going to be a task, as we are predicted to finish stone dead last in the Championship with title odds of 200 to 1. This season, our performances in the cup competitions were honestly woeful, but that was not be the competition that we will be judged on this season. We got bounced in the second round of the Carabao Cup by League One Peterborough and lost in the 4th round of the FA Cup to Nottingham Forest. However, Championship survival was our goal. We started the season much better than I anticipated, winning our first 4 league matches and only conceding a single goal. As the season progressed, to my surprise, we continued to pick up amazing results against some of the biggest teams in our division. I have to say, it feels like a large reason for this was loan signing Sky Vink, who went off for his first season in England, bagging 28 goals and 17 assists in the Championship alone. Throughout the back end of the season, the results were still there and we were still racking up wins, meaning we somehow finished inside the playoffs where we would face Hull City. The playoff semi-finals are played over 2 legs and we were away at Hull first, and that man Vink powered us through to a 4-3 victory on the night, bagging a remarkable hat-trick. In the second leg back in Wales, he scored yet again to see us advance into the playoff final with a 5-3 aggregate victory. However, this set up a monumental test as we would take on Norwich, who knocked out Blackburn Rovers from the playoffs. So we took to the pitch at Wembley in potentially the biggest game in football, the Championship playoff final, and I really wasn't prepared for what was coming right now. It took almost 30 minutes for the deadlock to be broken, but after that, the floodgates opened. Goals came raining down on Norwich, with their goalkeeper Angus Gunn having one of the worst games I have seen, and we went on to win the game emphatically 6-0. That result signalled back-to-back promotions, and Wrexham will now be a Premier League team going into the 2026-27 season. Promotion to the Premier League does mean one significant thing. That Premier League money is coming straight into our bank balance. We now have a transfer kitty of just over 30 million, and our wage budget has almost doubled. But this isn't a time to go crazy. I will be desperately trying to bring that man Vink back for a debut season in the Premier League. This summer we had a huge transfer budget to attempt to make the jump into the Premier League, and we topped it up with some nice little outgoings. Casey Palmer wasn't happy with his game time, so he joined Rotherham for £3.5 million, and striker Jack Vale joined Plymouth for £1.2 million. Sadly, I was unable to bring Vink back on loan from Ajax for a second season. However, we did manage to bring in 10 new faces, including 9 free transfers. The only player we spent any money on was Scottish goalkeeper Callum McKenna, who joined us for £3.1 million from Queen's Park. Of the free transfer signings, key names would be Filippo Ranocchia, who joined us from Juventus to add some bite in our midfield, and up front we added Caio Jorge, also released from Juve, and Liam Delap, who joined us from Manchester City. Oh, and we managed to extend the loan of Rick Koch for a second season. So this is how our best 11 would look going into the season, and our squad now looks drastically different from what we started with, as Paul Mullin is the sole survivor. We will make our Premier League debut this season alongside the FA Cup and Carabao Cups, but we will have a tough task of survival, which is all the board are hoping for. Looking at the pre-season odds for the Premier League, we seem to be miles away from everybody else, predicted to finish 20th, but the media think there's a significant gap between us and the other promoted sides. This season was all about survival in the Premier League. If we finished in 17th, I would be ecstatic. The jump up from the Championship felt huge, but we were picking up occasional results at home against teams like Aston Villa, Fulham and Burnley. Our biggest result of the season was getting 3 points against Spurs at the Racecourse Ground, picking up a nice 2-1 win in March. The goal was actually to finish in 17th, but we only managed to get 37 points. And we all know how that 40-point barrier is kind of seen as the threshold for survival in the Premier League. However, we did manage to finish in 15th and somehow avoided the drop by 4 points. We did have a minus 29 goal difference on the season, so definitely work to be done, but it is Premier League football for another season. In the domestic cup competitions, we were quickly dispatched in the Carabao Cup, defeating Swansea in the second round before losing 2-0 at home to Chelsea in the third round. However, in the FA Cup, we somehow went on a bit of a run. Our progression through the competition was full of a tough opposition, but not really the elite teams of England. We knocked off Burnley, Rotherham and Luton Town to set up a quarter-final tie with Wolves. It was a tight affair at the Racecourse Ground, but in the second half, Sepp van der Berg headed home the only goal of the game. That goal meant that we progressed to Wembley for the semi-finals, where we would take on Brighton. Evan Ferguson opened the scoring for the Seagulls, but Caio Jorge fired home deep into second half injury time to send the game to extra time. 30 minutes came and went, but neither side was able to break the deadlock, meaning it would be settled via a penalty shootout. Tyrese John-Jules saw his opening penalty come crashing back off the post, and then players from both sides kept hitting the back of the net until Jordan Davies stepped up, needing to score to keep us in the tie, and his penalty hit the same post to see Brighton progress to the final. Just a little side note, they went on to take on Manchester City and actually lifted the trophy with a 3-2 win and an Evan Ferguson hat-trick. Well done, Brighton. This season exceeded my expectations and we will be playing Premier League football yet again next season. However, this squad needs a lot of work to truly be able to compete at the Premier League level. To get us that little bit closer, we have just over £57 million to spend on transfers, and we're starting to improve things off the pitch as well, with our youth and training facilities seeing improvements, and we are currently playing our games in Swansea as work has now begun to expand our stadium. This summer, we lost 2 of our starters to Saudi Arabia as Raul Moro and Caio Jorge departed for a combined £27.25 million. We then took that money and raided the transfer list to bring in Noni Madueke from Chelsea for £17.5 million and Marcus Leonardo from Newcastle for £10.25 million. Also in this window, the time had come for me to crack out my Wonder Kid finder to pick up some high potential players for cheaper prices. The most expensive of the lot was Turkish striker Kore Mutlu, who joined us for £9 million. We then picked up a Romanian duo for a combined £5.8 million and Danish defender Kasper Pedersen for £3.2 million. And finally, we raided South America for Steven Alvarez for £1.7 million and Christian Garcia for £1.1 million. This seemed like a great transfer window to me, and the team has a few more stars in it now, but we are still one of the youngest teams in the league. However, the media prediction says that we have not improved at all, as we are still predicted to finish last in the league and have title odds of 1,000 to 1. Oh, and Ange Postecoglou is now the Nottingham Forest manager. It's just FM things, I guess. Season 5 saw us actually achieve something that I've rarely seen in Football Manager before. We either won games or lost them. There was something not really happening in between, as we only recorded a single draw in the Premier League in the whole season. This season we picked up more wins against teams in and around us, but did suffer the occasional thumping, like this one from Aston Villa or this one from Liverpool.
Did Liverpool play well today?
They played all right in the second half, no problem. They won the game 7-0.
You said they didn't play very well.
Well done, congratulations.
We did, however, win 17 games throughout the Premier League season and managed to pick up a huge 52 points that saw us sneak into the top half of the table. Key player for the season was Steven Alvarez, who adapted to play in the left midfield position and produced 11 goals and 14 assists on his debut season, aged just 19. In the Carabao Cup, we advanced to the quarterfinals, where we came up against Chelsea for a second season in a row, but the outcome was the same again, this time with us losing 9-8 on penalties. And in the FA Cup, it took us a replay for us to defeat Bromley before dispatching Blackpool, but our journey came to an end with a loss at home to Bournemouth. I felt like I've wrapped this season up really quickly, but I kind of don't want to keep you guys hanging around all day, so let's move into the next season, shall we? And we will have another £60 million to get things going in the summer, and I have to say we're back at the racecourse ground, which now has a capacity of 23,657, a 13,000 increase since we started this rebuild, and our training facilities are now at max level. I guess being owned by Hollywood superstars is pretty worth it. Throughout the summer transfer window, the clubs from Saudi Arabia came calling again, and this time enabled us to take our spending to new levels. First up, Sepp van den Berg joined Al Ahly for £30 million, and he was followed out the door as Lucien Aguame joined Al Nassr for £37 million. On the incoming side of things, we signed young Portuguese striker Andreas Stafias from Boa Vista for £14.5 million, Dario Martinez for £6.25 million from Argentina, and finally we went big, signing one more seasoned veteran in defender Diogo Liete from Union Berlin for £56 million. Looking at the team now, we've actually got some studs in this squad, but I do have to say that Noni Madueke has said that he will explore options at the end of his contract, which is a real shame. It's taken 2 full seasons, but we are finally not the worst team in the Premier League according to the media prediction, as we are now predicted to finish in 19th with title odds of 700 to 1. Look at poor Cardiff taking our place at the bottom. Before we get into the season, I did manage to secure one final signing before the window slammed shut, as we brought in midfielder Monchu from Real Valladolid for £18.5 million to give us another option in that midfield. Getting into the game, Season 6 saw us go through some purple patches in form, picking up clusters of victories, but still suffering the odd pasting here or there. However, things did feel better this season as I was sat here watching the simulation go by, especially when we managed to do the double over Manchester United. We managed to finish on 55 points, which was 3 more than last season, but we remained in 10th place for a second successive season. But I would say that we are now an established Premier League club. In the domestic cups, we were bounced out of the Carabao Cup in August, yet again losing to Wolves. And in the FA Cup, we progressed past Millwall and Ipswich Town before coming up against Manchester City in the 5th round. City, still managed by Pep, came to the racecourse ground, and even with 10 men, thanks to Alvarez getting a straight red card on halftime, we still managed to get the winner through substitute Casper Pedersen. That set up a quarter-final tie against Tottenham, where after a barnstorming game, Spurs did find a way to grind out a victory with their winning goal coming from the spot in the 93rd minute. So that is another season in the books, and I need a really good summer of bringing in some key players, but also having another season for our young new gens that we've signed to develop. I have an absolute war chest this summer, as I have just over £82 million to spend on this team. Another summer, another player that departed the club for Saudi Arabia. This time, Liam Delap left the club for just under £15 million. On the incoming side of things for transfers, we picked up 3 players, for a grand total of £51 million. Replacing Delap in our attack, we pulled in Youssoufa Moukoko from Dortmund for just £12 million. Now, this isn't the best I've seen him look in game, but let's see what we can do with him. In defence, we picked up another older player as Benoit Badiashile come into the team from Bayern Munich after being transfer listed for the bargain price of £10.25 million. And finally, in midfield, we secured Serbian international Ivan Ilic from Torino for £29 million. Sometimes it's not all about wonder kids in Football Manager, sometimes you need the players with that experience. Ilic is the only summer signing to make it into our starting 11, but some good news, I was able to convince Noni Madueke to stay at the club beyond last season, so he remains in the team on that right hand side. This season we've jumped up another place in the pre-season predictions, as we're now expected to finish in 18th, with newly promoted sides Burnley and Watford expected to finish below us in the table. Now, I know I said I wanted us to break into these European positions, but I'm going to give you some spoilers. Unfortunately, we just couldn't do it. This season, we managed to pick up impressive results against teams like Manchester City and Arsenal, but lost silly games against sides like Sunderland and Crystal Palace. We are getting closer to those European spots though, as we moved up into 8th place in the league with a 60-point haul for this season. Also, massive note for this season was that we had our first season with positive goal difference. So that is a huge plus. Marcus Leonardo was our key player for the season, producing 25 goal contributions in 40 appearances, and he really seems to have recovered from his 4-season spell at Newcastle, where he only made 13 Premier League appearances. Our performance in the Carabao Cup continued to be unspectacular as we exited the competition in the 3rd round at the hands of West Ham. And in the FA Cup, we crashed out in the 3rd round after a replay at the hands of Crystal Palace. I really want to add some more silverware to this trophy cabinet, but right now, I'm not really sure where that's going to come from. Looking at the finances at the end of the season, we're a little bit restricted with 45 million in the transfer budget, and that is because we have a brand new stadium coming soon. This was one of the slowest transfer windows ever, as we had a few players leave the club on free transfers and loans, and we only signed one player. But I do have to tell you, this is a big boy signing. We signed Dutch defender Jaron Mulder from Feyenoord for a whopping £90 million. Looking at his attributes, I think he's already one of the best young defenders in the game, and he's already been capped 21 times by the Netherlands, aged just 22. You're going to have to let me know in my Discord, which is linked down below, if you've seen any better players than this, because I think this guy is truly exceptional. It's no surprise that Mulder comes straight into the starting 11, and I'm thinking a player of this caliber will be able to take us over the top. Sadly, looking at the pre-season odds, we haven't really improved in terms of our expected finish, as we are expected to finish in the relegation zone yet again. But this is a monumental moment as Mulder makes it into the Media Dream 11. So the Wonder Kid Finder strikes again, because this guy has been on my shortlist for a couple seasons. So it's taken 4 seasons of being in the Premier League, of just kind of working our way up, but this year was our breakout season, and we really didn't disappoint. This year, we were much better and much more consistent, picking up more wins in the league than ever before, and in the back end of the season, we managed to even beat Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City and Spurs to see us finish inside the top 4 for the first time, meaning we will be playing Champions League football next season. We finished the season with 22 wins, 6 draws and 10 losses, and a total of 72 points, with Andreas Stafiers going off for the season with 20 Premier League goals. However, our success this season did not end there. For the first time in a long time, we were able to progress through the first few rounds of the Carabao Cup to set up a quarter-final tie with Brentford. We took them on at home and dominated the game from start to finish, securing a 4-1 win with 4 different goal scorers getting on the score sheet. This set up a semi-final clash with Liverpool, which would be played over 2 legs. The first leg was at the racecourse ground, and there was 9 goals in the game, with both teams effectively forgetting that they could play any defence. We ran into a quick 3-0 lead at halftime, but the second half was much closer, with both teams trading goals, with us running out 6-3 winners to take a 3-goal lead to Anfield. The second leg was also a crazy game, with another 6 goals shared between the two teams. This time out they were shared equally between the pair of us, with the game ending 3-3, but that meant that we advanced into the final with a 9-6 aggregate win. Into the final we went, where we would take on Manchester United, who are now managed in-game by Unai Emery. We were able to continue our impressive run of goal scoring as Ivan Ilic opened the scoring inside the first 10 minutes. Just before half-time, we extended our lead through new-gen Domingo Cancella, who fired low and beyond Onana. Towards the end of the game, Youssoufa Moukoko added the final nail in the coffin, making it 3-0 to put the game beyond Manchester United to see us win the Carabao Cup. However, we were poor again in the FA Cup, but who cares, because we managed to get Wrexham into the Champions League and won ourselves a lovely trophy. Going into the summer, we have £58 million to spend on this team to take it into the Champions League, but it feels like we are really cooking now. This was a huge transfer window to get us ready to compete in the Champions League, and we had a good amount of money to spend on transfers, but I topped it up with selling some players who were unhappy at the club. First up, Benoit Badiashile moved to Sunderland for £18 million, and striker Corey Mutlu departed for Bochum for £7.5 million. When I was in Germany, I discovered this man, Bjorn Marinov. He looks like a complete all-round striker who can do a little bit of everything, and that composure attribute of 18 is to die for, considering he's only 22 years old. He was expensive though, joining the club from Frankfurt for £70 million. Next up, electric winger Pedro Benitez joined the club this summer for his minimum fee release clause of £17.25 million, arriving from Boca Juniors. Whilst in South America, I raided Palmeiras for utility man Michael. He looked supremely well-rounded and joined the club for £12.75 million. I also felt like we needed a Welshman back at the club, so we signed Geraint Hanford from Leeds United for £16.75 million. And finally, we managed to bring in Elise Ben Sakir on a free transfer following his contract expiring with Monaco, and I was absolutely buzzing to pick up a player of this caliber on a free transfer. The team is now looking supremely well balanced, and depth-wise, I feel like we are ready to compete on every single front this season. Competitions-wise, of course, we add the Champions League to our schedule this season, and we will enter in the league phase. In the Premier League, we made some strides in the media prediction, as we are predicted to finish in 13th place and have title odds of 250 to 1. Oh, and it's the start of a new era for Wrexham, as we will be playing in our brand new stadium, Joey Jones Park. For those of you who didn't know, Joey Jones is a Wrexham legend who had 3 spells at the club, making over 375 appearances. I have to start this season by talking about the Champions League, where we were drawn in the league phase alongside Bordeaux, Ajax, Barcelona, Fiorentina, Partizan Belgrade, Galatasaray, PSG, and Porto. We are really rubbing shoulders with Europe's elite right now. I was amazed at how well we got on in the league phase, picking up 5 wins from our 8 fixtures, which meant that we actually finished in 7th in the table with 16 points. That top 8 finish meant that we automatically qualified for the round of 16, where we would take on Inter Milan. The first leg was in Italy, where we were taught a little bit of a lesson, getting pumped 5-0 by Inter, with our old friend Sky Vink bagging a brace against us. Back home in Wales, things were a little bit closer, but the tie was already over, but we managed to put on a better performance, with the game ending 2-2 on the night, and Inter Milan progressing with a 5-2 aggregate win. But for our first appearance in the Champions League, I think making the knockout stages is a cracking performance. Back home in the Premier League, we picked up where we left off last season, and we're even picking up points against some of the league's big boys, but this season, we just drew far too many games. We racked up 12 draws this season, along with 19 wins and just 7 losses, meaning we finished on 69 points, up in 4th, meaning we will be playing Champions League football again in Season 10. Our defence of the Carabao Cup didn't exactly go swimmingly, as we progressed through the early rounds with wins against Everton and Portsmouth before getting dominated by Spurs in the quarter-finals. And in the FA Cup, we dispatched Birmingham in the 3rd round, but then Everton got their own back for the Carabao Cup fixture, knocking us out in the 4th round. We have £56 million to spend in this final summer transfer window, but I'm sure I can find some instalments here or there. So guys, I know this is a long video, so please, if you are still watching this video, let me know that you are doing so by commenting the word Deadpool down in the comments. That lets me know that you've made it all the way to the end of season 10, and I greatly appreciate your support. In this final transfer window, we sold Youssoufa Moukoko to Nottingham Forest for 16.75 million after him failing to nail down a starting spot in our squad. On the incoming side of things, we pulled in a now 36-year-old Fikayo Tomori on a free transfer following his release from Newcastle, and we picked up Danish new-gen John Wilbro also on a free transfer. We did spend some money on bringing in young Brazilian Edir Kragel from Palmeiras for £33 million and Turkish international goalkeeper Alkır Zengin from Galatasaray for £33.5 million. That takes our total spend on this rebuild to just shy of £500 million. This is the best 11 for the final season, and I have to say that Bjorn Marinov is turning into one hell of a player who is now wanted by Liverpool, Manchester United, Newcastle and Inter Milan. We will be in the same 4 competitions as last season, and we are finally predicted to finish inside the Premier League's top 10, as we are expected to finish in 8th and have title odds of 50-1. And I'm ready to give it my best shot. Kicking things off with our second season in the Champions League, where we were drawn alongside AC Milan, Roma, Troyes, Dortmund, Club Brugge, Galatasaray, Liverpool and RB Leipzig in the league phase. We picked up 5 victories in the league phase, even picking up victories against Roma and RB Leipzig. However, that was only good enough for a 9th place finish, as 4 teams finished on 16 points, meaning we would have to go into the playoff knockout round where we would face Roma, a team that we'd beaten in the league phase. We travelled to Rome for the first leg, where our goalkeeper had a little bit of a stinker, as Roma scored 3 goals with just 4 shots on target in the whole game. Noni Madueke did add a consolation goal for us towards the end of the game, but there would still be lots to do in the second leg. And the game in Wrexham had a little bit of everything. First, Bjorn Marinov opened the scoring in the second half to make it 3-2 on aggregate, then Andreas Stafier saw his penalty saved 3 minutes later by the Roma keeper. 60 seconds after that penalty save, we were reduced to 10 men as Steven Alvarez received a straight red card for a stupid challenge, and sadly we could not score another goal to see Roma advance and see our Champions League dream come to an end. There was no success in the domestic cup competitions as well, but in the Carabao Cup I felt like we were dealt a tough hand. First defeating Chelsea in the 3rd round before losing to Manchester City in the 4th round. In the FA Cup we progressed through the earlier rounds, again eliminating Chelsea before facing Manchester United in the quarter-finals and losing in extra time. However, a moment of magic happened in the Premier League. Our start to the campaign was solid but not spectacular, with losses to Spurs, Arsenal, Everton and Manchester United. But following that loss to Manchester United, we went on a 15-game unbeaten run, largely down to the goals from Marcus Leonardo. The Brazilian had his best season in a Wrexham shirt, bagging 35 goals in 36 appearances in the Premier League, on the way to scooping the Golden Boot. Our form towards the end of the season was fantastic, only dropping 9 points from 54 available to be crowned Premier League champions, winning the league with 91 points. This was a remarkable way to finish this rebuild, because this squad now has some elite tier talents. And you can pick up this save with Wrexham over on my Patreon. And if you do like the FM24 rebuild content, check out this playlist. It's all of the rebuilds that we've done on this year's game.